Could the Dark Eldari actually heal the Emperor? To answer this, we'll go over the Dark Eldari lore and how they bring themselves back from beyond the veil and compare that to what we know about the status of the Emperor. We'll draw on Path of the Renegade. So welcome friends to another 40k video, and let's begin. The idea for this video came from the Vaults of Terror Dark City. In brief, in that book, the Dark Eldari have made a deal with the Mechanicus, and they have made their own Black Throne, their version of the Golden Throne, and want to use it to control access to the Webway to stop beings from the Warp demons coming through to their sector of the Webway. But it needs a power source for this, a Psyker. They want to create a clone of the Emperor to do so, to fulfill that role, and DNA to do this was provided to the Drakari. In exchange for this, the Golden Throne is failing, and they can help fix a part of it. This is 40k, so the plan falls apart. I think it was a servo skull that survived, and that might know what happened, but we don't know where it went to. Anyway, I tell you all this to show that the Aeldari themselves must believe that they can accomplish a copy of the Master of Mankind. But could this also apply to the man himself? The rules of the process are laid out in conversation between Nios and Archon and Cyan and later Belathonis, and both homunculi think on them as doctors of the Dark Eldari, more like surgeons actually. We will go over the conversation, then apply what is said to the Emperor and see how things fit. Nios wants to overthrow and rule Camorra, and to do this wants to bring back one of the rivals of Vect. Nios says, "How would you remake a highborn who has been lost for a very long time, centuries, perhaps even millennia?" Cyan responded, "A complex process, my Archon. The fresher the remnant, the more quickly and safely regeneration of the whole can be achieved. I see that a fresh remnant, as you put it. What conditions would be most conducive to success?" "A potential victim is required," Cyan warns the Archon. "There are risks. Some amongst my brotherhood hold that the efforts to return Lokarian directly contributed to the fifth disjunction, my Archon." Cyan whispered, fearful, and Belathonis is named as one with the knowledge needed to bring back Vec's rival. So as time goes on, the risk of returning the person grows. It sounds here like this rival to Vect has been gone for a while, but likely not as long as the Emperor. So the Emperor will be very high risk after 10k years, but there to balance it out, there's a fair bit of his original body, even if it's decayed in the skeletal. So let's get more into the details here. Firstly, the body must be regrown. For this, the smallest fragment of the subject can be used. Even ashes will suffice, Belathonis said, as one obscenely long, thin finger was lowered. We again have that body, so that should not be an issue, but some sort of psychic being must take his place on the throne for them to be able to do this. But from what can do here, and his own perpetual abilities, it seems possible. Secondly, Belathonis says, the animating spirit must be recalled into the body, and then nourished with sufficient pain and suffering of another. So the body of the Emperor on the throne already has some animating spirit. The rest would be what I call the Starchild Emperor, i.e. the part of him cast off into the warp, so he could properly deal with his son Horus during the heresy. That part is likely a larger and perhaps better part of his soul. The only obstacle might be the Emperor part itself. Would the Starchild Emperor, that offers miracles to his people, want to link back with his half-mad version on the throne that suffered for 10,000 years? Now that other part, nourished with pain and suffering, in a very strange way, doesn't the Emperor already get that when the sacrifices are made to him and the demands of the throne? 1,000 Psykers daily are sacrificed, and it's not a pleasant process, so perhaps a much higher quantity of them, so the Dark Eldari could get enough power. We get a taste of this in Master of Mankind. The Psyker, for your information, is bound into a coffin attached to the throne and pleads for escape. And now, only now, does she hear the melody of the other souls, of the 1,000 sharing the same fate, suffering what she suffers. Their screams and prayers and panic and fear entwine, unseen by all, and form one sound, one impossibly perfect note. Those outside the coffins may yet hear it, but its true purity is unheard by any but the dying souls themselves. It is the very note in a song that will last 10,000 years, and perhaps beyond. She is its first singer. So I say that qualifies on a smaller scale. Bellathonis continues, if these two requirements are fulfilled, it is my belief that any regeneration may be performed. Death cannot hold us with either weight of years or violence if we have but the will to survive. Bellathonis' fist was gripped tightly by now, and there is one other part to add. There is a theory given by Vlocarian that one of the greatest souls you can use as power to bring back a soul is from an Eldar soul, and within that suffering, the greatest Aeldari suffering comes from an Exodite. This is because they have a pure heart, and so perhaps that could also be an element of this sacrifice. The greatest pure-hearted potential psychers brought to the Emperor. In the Dark Aeldari story itself, they do get these ingredients to bring back El-Uriak, one of Vex's great rivals, but he is possessed by a demon of Tzeentch, but it does work. The breath of true life gusted through him, satiating him in a way he had not known in 1,000 years. New skin, fresh and pink, as a new bones was already spreading over his red-boned hands. He mewed with pleasure as he basked in the suffering of a pure heart. Then the demon shows up, and that restorative energy is taken for that. So yes, it is possible, I think, on a technical level, but of course this would run into a lot of obstacles in the Imperium. I believe if some members of the Mechanicus and the Custodes were involved with this deal, for memory, so desperate are they that if the throne fails, the Imperium will fall, then they make this deal, and of course, if even a small group agree to the process, as in this story, the majority will disagree, because it's the Emperor, and think of the risk if it fails, and he falls, and that question I raised earlier still lingers. Who could replace him for the time it would take to set this all up? The Primarchs will be running back to Terra if they heard this might happen to their father, so technically possible, I would say yes. Likely to happen, well, we already have one example. Likely to succeed in the face of all the obstacles, it would meet no chance. That's like saying the Grey Knights could get the Emperor back on his throne, battling through the armies of Custodes and all the other elements around him. So please let me know what you think to this lore we have discussed in this video. What's your take on if the Dark Eldar could do it? Should they be given the opportunity? Absolutely not. And if you like this video on 40k, then you might also like this one. And if you want a number of videos on Trench Crusade, which is another subject I cover on the channel, then check out that subjects playlist. And to come back to 40k, I have two playlists for that on the channel. One has everything, and one covers a favourite topic of mine, the Dark Age of Technology. Lots of lore and theories based off it. I also cover Trench Crusade, as I mentioned, which has real-world DNA with 40k. Historically, and to return recently, and in the future, I did a load of Dune videos, which also has its own playlist on the channel. There is also a playlist for the Expanse books and TV series, most of the books, and a short playlist for the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio, and Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And that's the end of the video. It would be the darkest timeline if the Dark Eldari clones the Emperor. What price would they demand for the Imperium to do that? It was several systems in this book example, I believe. So thanks and good night.